2/3 of its gardens and cliff paths started collapsing. It was later realised the hotel itself was at risk after cracks started appearing in outside walls.
We had tea brought about 8 o'clock, and about 5 minutes after that I heard an almighty crack on the ceiling of the bedroom, and I said to my husband, "I'm sure that sounds as though there's some more landslide." "Don't be silly," he said. Within that there was somebody banging on the door. "Please, can you get out? Pack everything up and get out."
Coast Guards were brought in to help clear the area and check there was no one trapped under the earth on the beach.
It could keep on moving for a day or two very, very slowly. At the moment the tide's calm, but if we get a strong northeasterly gale, it could wash the slip away where it slipped down onto the beach, which could cause further slipping.
Engineers from Scarborough Borough Council have been drafted in to decide how to make the hotel safe.
The wall, then the rose garden vanished. Next, the guests had to flee for safety. And tonight, a hotel in Scarborough, a top one at that, is precariously perched on a cliff edge that's been collapsing into the sea.
Guests at the Holbeck Hall Hotel on Scarborough's South Cliff were woken at 7:30 this morning to be told they were 50 yards nearer the cliff edge than when they went to bed last night. A massive landslide had sent most of the gardens crashing onto the beach 150 feet below.
This morning I drew the curtains back at 6:45 and I thought I'm seeing much more of the sea than I did last night, and put my glasses on, and I couldn't believe my eyes that 3/4 of the garden had just disappeared into a hole.
Almost by the minute, new cracks started to appear in the building, which used to be owned by the actor Charles Lawton. Just 1 hour, the foot of the slippage moved forward 14 feet. Structural engineers say they can do nothing to stop the hotel falling into the sea. Until then, it seems likely to remain one of the resort's more unusual tourist attractions. Wendy Homewood, ITN, Scarborough.
I don't have one anymore. Yeah, I know that's what I mean. It's gone like that, split. Where's it gone? Look. Then the sides. I don't know, them windows are going like that. Range. I mean, that's fine.
said that not my baby before I went to school. Thing, but I'm busy.
Wait a minute.
Pub's going to be empty tonight. And they said that the subsidence up here, like, we won't go and sort it out.
What are you a builder, are you?
Yeah.
Oh. I guess I suppose a lot of builders have interest in this sort of thing.
Down. Put concrete, probably a concrete raft on it.
Well, excuse me, I don't understand all these technical building
Well, a concrete raft, it'll be solid.
Oh, you mean like
length for that extension?
Ah, like a plateau or something.
So when that goes, it'll probably go down like a bloody sledge.
Yeah, it's all things gone up. All sun lounges gone. Woodley, come on. Yes, come on. Woodley.
facade below the gable that was there, and the gable that has disappeared in front has all disappeared since this morning.
Down the side of it now.
Oh.
Staying in the Holbeck Hall Hotel on Scarborough's South Cliff said they could hear cracking noises during the night. But it was at breakfast time this morning that the cliff edge began to slide away onto the beach, 150 feet below. Cracks began to appear in the building and the car park, and the hotel was 40 yards nearer the cliff edge than it had been last night. When the decision was taken to evacuate the hotel, many of the 50 guests were still in bed.
This morning I drew the curtains back at 7:15, and I thought I'm seeing much more of the sea than I did last night, and put my glasses on, and I couldn't believe my eyes that 3/4 of the garden had just disappeared into a hole.
Cliff paths and roads in the area surrounding the hotel were sealed off as the landslide continued like a lava flow. During 1 hour this morning, the foot of the slippage moved forward 14 feet, and the beach had to be cleared of sightseers. The Turner family, which owns the Holbeck Hall, arranged for valuable antique furniture to be taken away, and then they could only stand and watch as their livelihood moved closer to the cliff edge. Early estimates put the cost of reclaiming and regrading the South Cliff at a 7-figure sum. Until then, the landslide seems likely to remain one of Scarborough's more unusual tourist attractions.
It's been famous for its sea views. Tonight, the sea is too close for comfort. At first light this morning, a vast lawn separated the hotel from the cliff edge, but throughout the day, the land has slipped away. Then the main wall went, exposing the neat rooms which had earlier been hurriedly evacuated. The owners say the building is insured, but it's still a great loss.
It's obviously a tragedy for us as a family. I think it's a tragedy for the town because it has been a landmark in the town. It dominates this particular side of the bay, and it would seem at the moment that it has gone forever and we're not going to be able to put it right.
Experts say a large part of the hotel will inevitably slip into the sea. Next to go is the east wing, which is already teetering on the edge. When it goes, it's simply a matter of time. Harry Smith, News at 10, Scarborough.
They're waiting to get across that, aren't they?
Yeah, people are, yeah. In actual fact, tomorrow we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to go down there and take one straight across. Yeah. Well, even if there was two of you.
trees there, it was like a little we were stood right by that window. You're the windows because you can't see them.
It went in the hole! It went in that way!
Right, you went Smith, so we. Go back.
I can't see what bit went.
That front bit that's under black and white bit went.
Oh, I see. The bit that's out of view, you mean?
Yeah, just a bit above the train.
Yeah. Ah.
Cut out before people's heels in the road. They didn't. They wouldn't let them in to get them out now. They wouldn't let them back in, would they? All the geese in the road. They should have brought them enough route.
I can't have a look through these if you can manage with them. They're a bit, I don't know what's happened to them. We've used them that much today and they've gone all wobbling. You might have to look through one eye. You say, main part at Lucas's side, the side factory on it wasn't so much leaning. It's gone a lot. I was up here last night, it was more or less straight.
When you try to sell the property on a bank or an incline anywhere to there, that's what they were fortune.
When you go down here on Marine Drive, when you go down there and look up, it's a footpath with
glory, isn't it? You could for the week before it will go and you could turn your back and walk again. Oh, it's going to go definitely now.
It's changed a lot since last night we were up here last night.
It's a matter of time now, isn't it?
Well, you think it's stood down for not years.
I haven't been in the place last night.
I've been wishing out machines. I've still got loads of baby birds and stuff to feed this week. I've got to get back to feed them and I'll come back out again. I've left answering machine on all day. People can put it out.
You can hear the slates falling off, can't you?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely moving. See what's the lights at young?
Some kids shouting around. We've waited all day for that. What a crime.
It'll pull the rest of it down once it starts settling.
Guess what? I missed the beginning of that.
Never.
I got the last bit.
Wish I could have a copy of that.
It'll be on telly, I should think.
Is window crack bigger at bottom?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see, yeah.
Can you see cracks got bigger on the part that stood up?
Someone's opened the bedroom window in the loft as well.
Yeah, as if somebody's in there.
Throughout the night, Scarborough's Heartbreak Hotel continued to crack up. 110 years of history reduced to rubble. Dawn revealed the full extent of the devastation. Among the first to survey the ruins of the Holbeck Hall Hotel, members of the family which owned it.
Well, it's, you know, just as distressing as ever. But, the sooner it's down now, the better.
Scarborough's local paper published on a Sunday for the first time in 70 years as crowds flocked to see the ruin that's already giving the castle some competition.
Well, we live fairly local, like, and just thought we'd come and have a look what was happening.
Well, I've been coming down since yesterday morning. I was waiting for the East Wing to go, but I just missed it last night.
There's no hope now for the valuable collection of art and antiques inside the hotel. It's believed a £3 million insurance claim is now being prepared. At what was once Scarborough's Holbeck Hall Hotel, the East Wing reduced to rubble, slowly sliding into the sea. Throughout the night, its walls had been collapsing. The owners arrived to find any hope of salvaging valuable art and antiques now gone.
Well, most of it now has gone, but the main furniture that's in now is bedroom furniture, but the main antiques in the building have gone.
Going, read all about it, the Yorkshire on Sunday.
Scarborough's real-life cliffhanger has brought massive media attention and huge crowds to the South Bay, but tourism officials have mixed feelings.
I spend my life trying to get this type of, or to get media coverage of Scarborough and how good it is. I just regret that this is the way we're getting it today.
Loss adjusters are already counting the cost of the landslide. The insurance claim is expected to reach £3 million. Ian Cundall, ITN, Scarborough.
curtain or one lad on there.
They've been playing it for a while.
Yeah, on there, yeah. Yeah.
Actually up to the slip of it. Yeah, up to the slip. Okay. I believe it. Yeah, what's the location of these people on the cliff? Yeah, about 200 yards south of where we are now, over. Yeah. Once you run back south, you'll be around the 7 hours, went back south. Negative back towards the north on the bottom of it, stand by. Alpha Lima.
Lima Alpha.
Yeah, it looks like you have two people coming north as well, over.
Yeah, well, they'll just make it if they keep coming fast and get right on the strip and bottom. Still stay to walk on.
Yeah, well, do you know the guy, the guy that started with the low me, is that his mate further back in white over where I'm pointing now?
Yeah, there's three actually. There's one sat in the cliff that's never moved and I can only see one of them over. Negative.
Yeah, Roger, that's affirmative. We're going back up to the top then.
Yeah, where's these two people? Are they coming round to me now, over?
Yeah, you'll have them visual probably a minute over.
Okay.
was. I was in the water.
You're going back. Yeah. You go back now.
I could have stood there till tomorrow morning.
Okay.
You'd have felt it when you got these shouts.
I thought these shoes leaked as well.
We're just waiting for it to arrive and then I'll bring you some food and Owen down over.
Okay, roger. I'll go around this corner, keep an eye on these dusty back because I can see the pot there, but we're going to have an angle job.
Yeah, roger that.
I'm not going to be daft. I'm not daft.
Down here. Might put the feet up there, right there. Well, I've been telling you quite a lot of people. Can't really look at the bottom.
In slipping, but the greatest potential now is for that block to go.
What, that lot?
Yeah. You're cheerful.
It's possible, I suppose, yeah, because that's very steep.
The greatest potential is for that block to go, just on that bluff.
There's another house up there as well.
Yeah.
Logically, I mean, that's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's the same steepness,
exactly
isn't
the
it?
same strata and exactly the same problem. It's right away from the spar, White Point.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you mind if I video you? It's good stuff, this.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Oh, well. There we are. But all these rocks all the way along the coast, what they call the deltaic series of the Jurassic, are very susceptible to cliff collapse. It's because of the interleaving, if you like, of hard rock and soft rock, which makes it potentially more dangerous than the Apapante. That was, you know, relatively uniform material.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This isn't. So when the soft stuff gives way, when that starts to move, the hard stuff collapses with it and breaks down with it. How long did it take to build? It's the biggest landslip I've seen for a long while. Not quite the largest.
I didn't realise it was this deep for a long while. I was here all Friday night and I expected it sort of going up toward the hotel, and then eventually I saw how big that crest was to like a monkey.
When it goes away in a curve like that. So
keep off that grassy bank, please?
Yeah. Tourist attraction for ships. Yeah, it should bring some money in. Yeah.
What a shame.
Fortnight's North Wing, the one that's just got 6.
Seriously, a little bit for a week, solid.
With it. Adam was walking along that thing.
I missed it. Wasn't switched on. Yeah, it's still here, done. That's how it's come up here.
Hello from the cliff top in Scarborough. I'm speaking to you from the cliff top in Scarborough. I'm speaking to you live from the cliff top in Scarborough. I'm speaking to you live the cliff top in Scarborough. I'm speaking to you live from the cliff top in Scarborough. I'm speaking to you live. Well, I don't know if you probably saw that, and it says it all. If you probably saw that, and it says it all. It says it all. Which has been standing precariously all afternoon, has finally gone. This is the latest piece of the Holbeck Hall building here that has stood for 110 years, and as you can see, losing its battle, its grim battle to cling on to the crumbling cliff. It's been a dramatic story, a dramatic moment just then, just as we came on the air. We'll have all the details later in the programme, but now over to Krista.
Yes, certainly drama in...
We've just seen that chimney collapse and the latest bit of the hotel here fall into the sea. This was a drama that began in the early hours of Friday morning when 100 yards of garden in front of the hotel slipped into the sea and obviously undermined the whole structure of the hotel. Since then, 40 to 45% of the hotel has slipped away. It can now only be a matter of time before the whole hotel collapses down the cliff and into the sea. It's been a distressing time for the owners who've put their hearts into this hotel for the last 14 years. They're already calling this hotel Heartbreak Hotel. Tragedy here at the Holbeck Hall Hotel has attracted thousands of visitors coming to have a look at this amazing and distressing sight. People have been greatly saddened by it. The Scarborough Evening News put out a special edition, the first time it's printed on a Sunday for over 70 years. But Ian Cundall has been here as our reporter, and he now chronicles these tragic events.
And dawn reveals a scene of devastation. The resort's only four-star hotel reduced to little more than a pile of rubble. Throughout the night, the Holbeck Hall Hotel had been tearing itself apart, its foundations hopelessly undermined by a landslide. This morning, the family owners surveyed the ruins, all hope of salvaging a valuable collection of art and antiques now lost.
Well, most of it now has gone. The main furniture that's in now is bedroom furniture, but the main antiques in the building have gone. So really there's not much we want to recover. You know, just as distressing as ever. But, the sooner it's down now, the better.
Still only 25p, no double charge on a Sunday.
For the first time in 70 years, Scarborough's evening newspaper printed on a Sunday. Intense media interest has made the hotel collapse famous worldwide.
Reporting live from outside what's left of Holbeck Hall.
But the local tourism officials have mixed feelings about the resort's newfound fame.
I spend my life trying to get this type of, or get media coverage of Scarborough and how good it is. I just regret that this is the way we're getting it today. It's very sad.
One local entrepreneur has made a killing selling souvenir T-shirts. Crowds have been deserting the spa and the sands to watch the resort's real-life cliffhanger unfold, a bizarre new tourist attraction.
Well, it isn't very often you see them. You don't see them every day. So I just thought we'd have a ride out. It was a nice day and see what else to be seen.
Well, I've been coming down since yesterday morning. I was waiting for the East Wing to go, but I just missed it last night.
It isn't very nice, is it? You see your house falling down.
Don't buy a house too near the sea. What's drawn you here? I mean, do you think it's a bit ghoulish coming down? Absolutely, yeah. So does everyone else. That's why we're here.
Thousands of tons of clay have cascaded onto the south beach. From the air, the enormous scale of the landslide which caused the hotel to collapse can now be seen. The spectacle drawing yet more crowds.
It's blocked off there. Should you go back along that way?
But Coast Guard say the landslip could be deadly.
The subsoil and the soil still moving, and of course people walking on it could very easily fall down the crevices, or in fact just be caught by the tide.
It's 400 years since Scarborough's castle walls collapsed, creating its first scenic ruin. Now it has a rival. For a few days at least.
Well, Ian Cundall there chronicling the events of the last 24 hours or so. Mike Clements is Director of Technical Services, Scarborough Borough Council. Well, I suppose with hindsight we always know best, but is there any way you could have foretold this would happen?
I doubt very much it was possible to foretell this. We had indications over the last 6 weeks that there was some slight cracking, but that's not uncommon on this part of the coast.
And you wouldn't expect, would you, 100 yards or so of, well, what was garden to collapse in one go?
Absolutely not. I've worked for the authority for 30 years, and this is the largest slip I've ever seen on this part of the coast.
So coastal erosion. And would you actually call this a landslip or coastal erosion?
This is a landslip. It isn't coastal erosion. There has been some suggestion that it's been affected by the sea, but there was a sea wall protecting the base of these cliffs. This is just a classic landslip, clear slip.
So what did cause it, and could it have been prevented, do you think?
Well, I think what caused it is likely to have been the movement of water through the sand and gravel layers which naturally occur in the boulder clay cliffs. It could have been prevented had millions of pounds been spent in the past in installing drainage and in regrading and stabilising these cliffs.
And how far now do you expect this landslip to go up this road? I mean, we're now at the end of a suburban road. How far?
I don't anticipate actually there will be much further movement. The major slip, as you've already indicated, occurred early on Friday morning, extended slightly over the ensuing few hours. But since Friday evening, there's been literally no detectable movement in the areas beyond the slip. So I think the boundary of the slip is already pretty clearly defined.
So people living down this road and indeed further down the coast can feel reasonably reassured, can they?
I'm confident that for the time being, at least anyway, there's no cause for concern.
What are you going to do with the stuff that's fallen down and all the, well, a million tonnes, I've heard, a million tonnes of earth has collapsed. What are you going to do with it?
That's a figure that's been mentioned, yes. Well, that remains to be seen. The first thing we have to do is wait until the area is stable and secure. Then, with the help of our expert geotechnics advisors, we'll plan a programme of investigation leading to the preparation of a scheme for submission to central government to see whether or not they're willing to fund it.
I think when you look at this whole tragedy, it is a building after all. Lovely building, though it is.
Yes.
Nobody was injured, nobody was killed. It's what could have happened. I mean, there was going to be a wedding yesterday afternoon, beautiful day, a marquee, hundreds of people. I mean, what could have happened is mind-boggling.
It doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
All right, well, thank you very much indeed, and good luck to you, because I know it's been traumatic. Now, if you live down this road, what would you think? If you lived in this house here, say, there it is, it's 150 yards from the sea, from the cliff. This is the lady that lives here, Val. Come on, Val. And this is Peter, lives next door. You've been reassured, but are you reassured? Are you sleeping at night?
I didn't sleep very much on Friday night, I must admit, but Mr. Clements and senior officials of the Technical Services Department have reassured us. They've showed us the monitoring points. We've been told that the cliff on our side hasn't slipped, and as far as we know, isn't likely to slip. So I did sleep last night.
Yeah, a bit of a shock when I gather you came back and saw it all happening, or all having happened. And
I came back from Sheffield not knowing anything about this until I got to the top of the road and found a police cordon, and was told by the police that Holbeck Hall Hotel had slipped into the sea. And of course, I was devastated.
That's the sort of thing you can't believe it happened. No. I mean, of course, the thing is, Peter, Val's got the biggest worry because you live a bit further up the road.
Well,
so she's not worried. Yes. But when you look out of your windows now and don't see the hotel, well, you only see part of it now, it must be rather strange.
It is very odd, because we've lived opposite the hotel now for 5 years, expecting to have seen it every day.
Yeah. This is the view that you get. If you just move round, you can see the view that you get now. And
yes,
it's no longer there. It must be very weird.
Yes, it is very strange. I mean, we can in fact see parts of Scarborough that we couldn't see before, but I'd feel slightly more comfortable if the hotel was still there and we didn't live 50 yards away from the top of the cliff, as we now do.
And of course, I'm sure you know the owners, the Turners, well, and it's a tragedy for them, isn't it?
It's a lifetime's work just gone down the drain. Absolutely devastating for them.
Yes. Well, thank you very much indeed, and we hope, we have reason to believe your houses are safe.
Hope so.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the moment here in Scarborough. Now back to you, Krista, in the studio.
Yeah! I could tell it was you. Isn't it a wonderful sight, this, eh?
Come here, come here.
The Turner's empire crumbled.
That must be one of the TV networks or something.
You've got to cut your lamp again. Shut up.
Yeah.
Wait, Matt, tell him to wait. Sort of right down from it.
You can see the cross lat that goes across the road.
Right.
Look,
I've got that. I've got that then.
You've got that one,
Yeah,
did you?
yeah, I did, yeah.
Right. I thought it was moving when I said yeah.
Yeah, something else has got as well.
Because that crack's opening more and more, you know.
Well, that vibration just then would have set something else off somewhere.
Yeah.
Underneath a bit of soil like this.
Yes, that will all drop away this now. Because it's getting bigger.
Hotel, which is fast disappearing into the sea because of subsidence, is unlikely to be saved. Latest discussions surrounding the fate of the Holbeck Hall Hotel suggest it will be too expensive to stop the collapse.
A stiff breeze blowing in from the North Sea is hastening the end of Scarborough's Clifftop Hotel. Surveyors from the local council have been checking the progress of the landslide. 1 million tonnes of unstable clay sweeping down towards the sea. Halting it and preventing further land loss will cost £2.5 million, but it's feared the Ministry of Agriculture may refuse to fund the work, finding it cheaper simply to rehouse the owners of other threatened properties in the area around the hotel. Meanwhile, council officials and the emergency services are meeting to discuss security around the site. Work on a 6-foot-tall fence is expected to start today.
Holbeck Hall Hotel in Scarborough are meeting engineers to decide what to do next with what remains of it. The hotel is steadily collapsing down the cliff face. Today the kitchen started to subside. What's left of the hotel will probably have to be demolished, but now there's a row about who would have to pay for that bill.
Certainly well into 7 figures. We did a similar scheme at Whitby about 4 or 5 years ago, and that cost us in the order of £3.4 million.
A stiff breeze blowing in from the North Sea is hastening the end of one of Scarborough's top hotels. Surveyors from the council have been checking the progress of the landslide. 1 million tonnes of unstable clay is sweeping down towards the sea. Halting it and preventing further land loss will cost £2.5 million. But it's feared the Ministry of Agriculture may refuse to fund the work, finding it cheaper simply to rehouse the owners of other threatened properties in the area around the hotel.
There's not just the value of the property around here that needs to be taken into account in this equation. Scarborough is Britain's premier holiday resort, and tourism is a fundamental part of the economy of the area and will form a very large part of our bid.
But estate agents say the uncertainty has led the value of homes like Mike Gorbert's to plunge overnight.
This puts owner-occupiers of adjoining property, not just here but anywhere around the coast where a similar situation arose, on the sacrificial altar, I think.
A local councillor is today demanding immediate action.
We certainly do need funding, and all I'm saying to the government and to everybody, if we can, is help. We do need it.
But the hotel itself is now beyond any help. Another major collapse is expected within hours.
Scarborough's collapsing cliff-top hotel slid a little further into the sea today. The hotel's owners have been meeting engineers to decide what to do next. Howell Jones is there. Howell, what's the latest on the collapse?
John, brick by brick, piece by piece, this old hotel is slipping into the North Sea like King Canute. It's creaking and groaning like an old ship. Just earlier this afternoon, a 110-year-old chimney, which formed the central section of this hotel, simply crashed to the ground. I've been talking to some surveyors who've been checking the ground here beneath our feet. They say it's safe, it's dried out and it's stopped moving. But I've also been talking to some inspectors who've actually been inside the hotel behind me, and they are far from convinced that this hotel has stopped moving towards the sea.
Now, Howell, what of people who own homes nearby?
Well, this is one of the more affluent parts of Scarborough, as you can see, and properties here are worth at least 6 figures. But today you could hardly give them away, and that's because of the ruined hotel right on their doorstep.
We're live here in Scarborough, where the Holbeck Hall Hotel continues its slow but dramatic slide into the sea. And today, as the scale of the landslip becomes apparent, the questions being asked are who's going to pay for the massive clean-up operation, and who's going to find the money to make sure this sort of thing doesn't happen again? Dust is just clearing after the latest collapse of part of the building, and I think people in Scarborough and the rest of the country watching in, it has to be said, fascination as what has become the resort's most famous hotel continues to slide down the cliff. And it's just emerged that other buildings may be allowed to fall into the sea unless the local council can prove that halting the landslide is value for money. Meanwhile, 2 more victims of coastal erosion have been to see a government minister today to plead for help. Ian Cundall has the story.
Scarborough's crumbling cliff-top hotel continued to crack up today. Surveyors checking the progress of the landslide, 1 million tonnes of unstable clay. The chasm threatening to undermine nearby homes, but the fate of neighbours like Mick Gorbert rests on a bizarre cost-benefit analysis. Halting the slide will cost the Ministry of Agriculture £2.5 million. The local council must prove its value for money and cheaper than allowing the houses, like the hotel, to fall into the sea.
Happening now is when funds permit this and engineering and survey considerations allow it, a start made to giving coastal protection to this part of the South Bay.
An estate agent told Mr. Gorbert the value of his house had plunged with the cliff.
And I do think that the surveyors and engineers have got to come up with some sort of certificate to say that the rest of the road is not affected, because the uncertainty will cause the values to depreciate considerably.
The council want the government to take into account the value of the South Bay to the holiday industry.
There's not just the value of the property around here that needs to be taken into account in this equation. Scarborough is Britain's premier holiday resort, and tourism is a fundamental part of the economy of the area, and will form a very large part of our bid.
It's now 4 days since Scarborough's real-life cliffhanger began, the collapse of the 4-star Holbeck Hall Hotel drawing more crowds than the Sands. The local paper, printed on a Sunday for the first time in 70 years.
Get only 25p, no double charge on a Sunday.
The media followed each development as the hotel tore itself apart. It was dramatic and unpredictable, as Richard found out.
Hello from the cliff top in Scarborough. I'm speaking to you live. Well, I don't know if you probably saw that, and it says it all. It says it all.
Today, little remains of the hotel, a plea for immediate aid from a local councillor.
We certainly do need funding, and all I'm saying to the government and to everybody, if we can, is help. We do need it.
But the owners of Grange Farm at Howden near Hornsea know that help may be a long time coming. Sue and David Earle live just 30 feet from the fastest receding coastline in Europe. Today they saw the Agriculture Minister Earl Howe to plead for help for the victims of coastal erosion.
We need a proper strategy to protect the whole coast and cause stable bays, which will hopefully decrease the erosion.
The Minister promised to rush through a decision in the Earls' case. Scarborough may have to wait months more before its fate is known.
Well, I'm joined now by David Kilpatrick, who is in charge of the Holderness Coastal Erosion Project. David, it's a problem that is insoluble, it seems. No matter how much money we throw at it, the cliffs continue to disappear.
I think this is true. There is an ultimate point at which you cannot defeat the sea. What you can do sometimes is to hold it at bay, perhaps for a century, perhaps for 2. But ultimately, I think man is always going to lose in any effort he takes to try and battle the sea.
So what do you think is going to happen here? I mean, we're told that the local authority has to actually prove that it's value for money to save the buildings all around us.
Well, I think this is right. I mean, it's very easy to be swept forward in the tide of emotion, but one has got to be practical. At the end of the day, coast protection is a very, very expensive business. One is running at a rate of perhaps £6,000, perhaps even £8,000 for just a single metre length of protection. And when you place that against the value of property, you've got to be very careful that you're not putting more into the seawall than there is in the value of the property.
But there is of course, always the human element, isn't there? People have some very nice houses, they paid a lot of money to have sea views. Suddenly they find that the sea view is a lot closer than it used to be.
Yes, and somebody in the middle of London, although maybe sympathetic towards that, isn't necessarily going to put their hand in their pocket and pay the tax.
So are you saying then that the government, I don't know, doesn't care enough about coastal erosion in this part of the world?
I don't think it's a matter that a government doesn't care enough. It's a question of how much money is there to spend and how are you going to spend it. And the overall idea is, or on all the coasts of Britain, is if you want to build something, can you first of all prove that it's worthwhile building? Is there a positive comeback from the money that the public is investing in that particular thing? Now, it may well be, and as we are here in Scarborough or elsewhere on the Holderness coast, that this can be proved to be the case, in which case the money will be spent.
So are you saying then that for people who live on the Holderness coast, on the east coast, which is, I don't know, a lot of the properties are built on nothing more than clay, aren't they? That the outlook is bleak, or that they should be optimistic?
Where properties are clustered together, as you would in Scarborough or as you would in a small town like Hornsea or Withensea on the Holderness coast, then the outlook is not at all bleak. The outlook is very, very good indeed, because millions and millions of pounds are being spent to upkeep these properties through the building of the seawalls. But when you move out into the rural countryside, when you only have fields and scattered farms, then you're on a total different kettle of fish. And there, the outlook is, in the long run, bleak.
David, thank you. Here in Scarborough, all I can say is that nothing more has fallen off the hotel during the last half hour, but of course it is only a matter of time. 2 points of interest. On Friday, the landslip was moving at 10 feet per hour, and also it's covered a large section of the Cleveland Way, the popular coastal walk down here. Nobody knows what the walkers are going to make of that. It's about an hour and a half to get from one side of the landslip to the other. However, I'm sure all these problems will be resolved in time. From me in Scarborough, good night.
To have been a weekend of great celebration at Holbeck Hall. The hotel had been booked for a smart wedding reception. Indeed, some guests had already arrived in Scarborough. Well, the crowds did turn out, but for all the wrong reasons. They came to watch the hotel collapse and fall into the sea. Recent surveys of Scarborough's South Cliff had shown there were weaknesses there, but even the experts were surprised by the scale of Friday's landslip. In just a few hours, nearly 2 acres of grounds, the hotel's famous rose gardens, were reclaimed by the sea. The 100-year-old building was the flagship of the English Rose Hotel Group. The hotel's owners, the Turner family, watched helpless as piece by piece their hotel crumbled over the cliff top, taking with it thousands of pounds worth of antiques. Beneath the rubble somewhere, an oil painting worth at least £20,000.
Well, most of it now has gone. The main furniture that's in now is bedroom furniture, but the main antiques in the building have gone. So really there's not much we want to recover.
But what was Heartbreak Hotel for the owners became a treat for the tourists. The local cinema owner was perhaps the only one who predicted it was to be a busy weekend for Scarborough.
I spent all of my life trying to get Scarborough on the front pages of any newspaper, interviews like this, positive about Scarborough. This is not the way I like to get that sort of exposure, but obviously we'll take full advantage of it.
The tourists gathered too at the foot of the cliff. The police were worried some might try to see what they could salvage from the wreckage, but in reality most had come to pay their last respects to one of the resort's best-loved hotels.
I just can't believe that it's gone. I really feel very, very sorry about it. I think it's tragic. I think it's one of the best hotels in Scarborough, one of the most beautiful venues. And Scarborough people are going to feel a terrible loss, you know, because it was so popular.
This evening, nearly 4 days after cracks first appeared in the hotel gardens, the South Cliff appears to be still moving. The occasional collapse of masonry, a visible, if expensive, indicator of the tremors still occurring deep below ground. In the past hour, another huge chunk of the hotel has broken away. It'll be some days before surveyors can get close enough for a full survey to try to work out how to make the cliff safe and exactly how much it will cost. Well, those are just some of the many questions yet to be answered. There are some more too. Could it have been prevented, and will it happen again? Phil Connell now looks at some of the issues facing Scarborough, and in particular those who live on top of the town's South Cliff.
The residents overlooking Holbeck Hall were visibly shaken today as one of the town's most prestigious hotels continue to fall down Scarborough's South Cliff. Many fear their own properties may now suffer a similar fate. This house, which lies less than 50 feet from the massive landslide, is valued at more than £100,000. Its owner believes it's now virtually worthless.
We're living from one reading to the next, and the result of that reading. Because if, looking on the black side, one reading were to show that there is appreciable movement, and if that were to continue, it's bad news for us here.
And how does that make you feel?
Very uneasy.
Estate agents in Scarborough have expressed similar concern and say hundreds of properties along South Cliff will now be difficult to sell.
Thanks very much. Certain properties, obviously, would not be saleable at the moment because of people's natural reluctance to consider purchase in the immediate vicinity. So I think some properties inevitably are going to be extremely difficult to sell.
Today, as surveyors extended their investigation to other parts of the cliff, it emerged that substantial cracks in the area were found just 4 weeks ago. Scarborough Council says the cracks were sealed by engineers, although the true extent of the problem was impossible to assess. Local residents, though, claim subsidence at Scarborough began several years ago and now fear the town's ancient castle, which overlooks the harbour, faces a similar threat. Some believe the weekend landslide could have been avoided and blame the council for many of the town's subsidence problems.
I mean, they're doing things that shouldn't be done, and they're forgetting about the things that should be done. You understand what I mean? Such as that there, that should have all been seen to long ago.
Throughout the day, though, Scarborough's Deputy Mayor and Councillor for the South Cliff area has been assessing the damage and meeting constituents now concerned about their own property. The concern seems justified, with large sections of Yorkshire's coastline being lost into the sea over the past 20 years. Tonight, councillors in Scarborough are calling on the government to help foot a compensation bill expected to run into millions of pounds.
This whole of this cliff is unstable, and what can we do? We're human beings, we do our best, but we do need money. We can't do it on our own. We're only a town council, as you know. We haven't got the resources to do it. We do need backing from the government for this.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, though, says the government has no set policy regarding compensation claims, and tonight there's increasing concern in Scarborough that the council's request for help may not be viewed sympathetically.
Philip Connell reporting. Well, joining me now is Scarborough's Director of Technical Services, Michael Clements. Mr. Clements, could this have been avoided?
Well, the only way in which the risk could have been reduced is if the problem had been identified many months, if not years ago, and considerable sums, millions of pounds spent at that time.
Is it just down to money?
Well, it's like most things. There is a budget restraint, and money has to be applied according to a system of priorities.
What sort of a job is making the cliff safe going to be?
Quite a considerable one. There are two major operations. The first one is to protect the toe of the present slip, and then the second one is to stabilise and drain the newly formed cliff area.
And how long before you can actually make a start on that sort of work?
Well, I think it'll be at least 6 to 9 months before we're in a position to formulate a scheme, and probably a year, 18 months after that before any works are completed.
And when that work is completed, can you ever give assurances that something like this won't happen again?
Well, there are no guarantees, I think, in this type of work, but I think if we do the sort of work that is required, then a considerable degree of confidence can be placed in them.
Well, there you are. That is the picture in Scarborough tonight. Still some way to go. Anxious moments both for the council here and for those who live on top of the South Cliff.
It's due to be passed over Scarborough's Holbeck Hotel any day now. Nearby residents are becoming increasingly concerned that their own properties may be next to slide into the sea. They're calling on the government to fund a major coastal protection programme for the whole of Scarborough's South Bay.
Scarborough's crumbling clifftop hotel continued to crack up today. Surveyors checking the progress of the landslide, 1 million tonnes of unstable clay. The chasm threatening to undermine nearby homes, but the fate of neighbours like Mick Gorbett rests on a bizarre cost-benefit analysis. Halting the slide will cost the Ministry of Agriculture £2.5 million. The local council must prove its value for money, and cheaper than allowing the houses, like the hotel, to fall into the sea.
There's not just the value of the property around here that needs to be taken into account in this equation. Scarborough is Britain's premier holiday resort, and tourism is a fundamental part of the economy of the area.
The council want the government to take into account the value of the South Bay to the holiday industry.
better finish, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's not scared.
Well, putting posts clear, aren't they? Yeah, probably something to do with the, I don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see it now. I see. Actually, the TV does run on its own batteries, but they're expensive, you know. And
I was told that as well.
so bored of seeing it. Mum, come back.
Trees. Hey, I still haven't spotted you two yet on the video. No. Got you now though.
That's why you can stand up that corner.
Berta.
Berta said yesterday at the road in Melbourne. There's Coast Guards down there now.
You are enough.
That must be staff quarters. How is it like?
Red light, photo opportunity. Hello. Hello. Anyway, come back and watch that. Yeah. Do you?
Say again. Right, I'll see you later then.
Want to know if you're going to buy us something?
Oh, read that.
Does she?
Hi,
Deeper.
What's not going to you?
Actually, the focus is a bit soft. Oh.
She's a bit soft, isn't she?
Look what you're doing out, it's rude.
You're a poser.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The slow tragedy of Holbeck Hall as it slips into the sea below Scarborough has drawn dramatic attention to the threat now facing Britain's coastline. From here to the English Channel, the North Sea's eating away at the shoreline, and parts of it are disappearing with terrifying speed. 3 years ago, when Sean and Yvonne Mars invested their life savings in this 6-acre pig farm, the North Sea was advancing at only 2 yards a year. But their little bit of land is disappearing much faster now.
Oh, well, there's another bit. My land was, what, 40 yards out there. And last week, that lot went down there. The sea's coming. And it's coming fast.
Soil and sand constantly move down the east coast of England, and one small farmer's loss can be a massive industry's gain.
Very difficult to convince the farmers of Holderness, but their erosion produces mud, which comes around here into the Humber estuary and builds up the mudflats. And those mudflats protect this, the flood embankment of the Humber estuary. And you can see this is in a fairly dilapidated condition. But this seawall here protects this multi-million-pound investment along the banks of the Humber.
Britain was stunned by news of the ghastly loss of life and fearful destruction on the east coast of England.
40 years ago, terrible floods killed more than 300 people as the North Sea breached defences in more than 1,000 places. In the aftermath, there was a massive investment all the way down the east coast in seawalls and so-called hard defences. Many of those now need to be renewed. But apart from flood protection and sites of exceptional value, experts now believe hard defences cause more problems than they solve. Professor Keith Clayton, who's monitored the shrinking of the Suffolk coast, sees no point in trying to halt this process.
Yes, that's 18.8 metres. Well, this is the most rapidly eroding place in England. Here at Cove Hive, the road has gone back about 25 metres in the last 12 months.
Should we be worried about that?
Not a bit. It's farmland. The planners have drawn a boundary, which is to the other side of the village. I know it's a lovely church, but in 75 years, that will have gone. The sediment is going away down the coast. The whole of the sandy beaches of Suffolk depend upon these cliffs eroding.
Today, the buzz phrases are soft defence and managed retreat. Here at Northey Island off the Essex coast, the old seawall has been deliberately breached to let the sea in. That'll turn this field into salt marsh and a new buffer against further erosion. When farmers are being paid to produce nothing, it doesn't make a lot of sense to build hugely expensive defences for every inch of coast. Of course, letting the old enemy of the sea take over good land doesn't seem right. But as that land sinks and the sea rises, the experts seem to be saying we'll have to get a little more used to it. David Rose, News at 10 on the Essex coast.
This is Sue Earle, a farmer from East Yorkshire, about to meet a local council official to discuss coastal erosion. Like all farmers, she's learnt to cope with the elements, but one, the sea, now threatens to take her livelihood.
We have a data set of coastal erosion measurements taken from 1951, and on this plan here I've traced the position of the cliff at various dates from 1910.
If we add up the metres there, plus the miles there is, it should show how desperate a situation the coast is, and hopefully they will look into some sort of protection for the whole coast. Our farm has been eroding very rapidly over the last 2 years, anywhere between 15 to 20 yards a year. The farmhouse is within 30 feet of the sea, and we might be having to move out of the farmhouse by this winter time. If there is a high sea, the spray can come up over the top. When it's a very rough sea, you can actually feel the cliff face shake, the house will shake. It feels like you can hear like a thundering noise all the time.
This picture postcard view of Sue's farm could soon be gone forever. Many miles of coastline are quite literally disappearing. The sea may look calm here, However, this video footage shot by Sue Earle shows the dramatic impact of the North Sea during the storm. The map of the region is constantly changing. During rough seas, up to 20 metres can be lost at one time. For some, any measures to control coastal erosion will be too late. In the past 200 years, dozens of villages and communities have disappeared beneath the waves. If the experience of the last 50 years is repeated, then this is how Sue's farm could look in 10 years. Campaigners say effective measures can be taken to stop coastal erosion, but sea defences like these at Mappleton can be very expensive.
I've had reports during the last 6 or 9 months of vast losses of land along the Holderness coast, up to 60 feet or 20 metres in places. We just can't move without the finance. Holderness is a very small district council. We haven't got the money to provide coast protection works. I mean, I don't know if you could see Mappleton up the coast there. That scheme cost £2 million. And we can only move if we get government grant aid. To protect the whole of the Holderness coast, at a rough estimate, £210 million, something of that order.
Coastal erosion is a three-tier responsibility. The government provides grant aid for schemes which are implemented by local authorities. In addition, the National Rivers Authority has responsibility for flood protection. To receive grant aid, 3 criteria have to be satisfied. Firstly, the scheme has to be technically approved. Secondly, it has to be sympathetic with the coastal environment. And thirdly, it has to be shown that the saving offered by the project is cost-effective. Wherever coastal erosion schemes are handled on a local basis, controversy follows. Sue Earle blames the Mappleton project for increased erosion of her land.
Since the Mappleton scheme was put into effect, we've lost approximately 10 metres a year compared to the 8 metres we lost the previous 8 years. Due to increased erosion through a scheme like Mappleton, I believe compensation can be payable, but under normal erosion there isn't. And I feel personally, for farmers especially, and other people, if it's your home and your business, the government should assist you in some form.
Environmental researchers have been looking closely at the impact of the Mappleton scheme on neighbouring communities.
The measurements we've taken so far do not show that erosion is any greater than it has been in the past. But then we're only 18 months after the defence work was put in. We desperately need to continue those results for a few more months to show that either she is just in one of these sort of hot spots of erosion which occur naturally, or, more importantly, that this hotspot is due to the Mappleton defence works. We really can't decide about that yet. It's not soon enough.
Further down the coast at Aldeburgh, residents are anxiously waiting the results of Dr. Pethig's investigation. Patty and Jim Parks moved into what they thought would be a dream retirement home 6 years ago. It's fast becoming a nightmare.
We found this cottage and we thought it was lovely. It was everything we'd ever wanted, with the beams and the copper, and a nice garden. And we're a bit worried about the erosion, so we checked with the council and various other people. And we found that since Roman times, the erosion had been about 2 metres a year. And then suddenly the erosion increased. We suddenly lost 25 yards. Overnight, it went down.
Blinking old east wind.
It's the salt, isn't it? It's the salt as well as the wind. So the small plants are all right because they're sheltered by the bigger ones.
Now the Parks and David Allison, the owner of the chalet site where they live, have decided to try and raise the cash to build their own coastal defences.
If we do it ourselves, we can do it a lot quicker, and I want to do something within the next 12 months, not within the next 5 years or anything. We want to put steel containers down on the bottom of the cliff, fill them with concrete, then clad them with rock from Norway, same as we've done at Mappleton, and just do our own coastal erosion work, which will work.
We are totally out on a limb so far as Westminster is concerned. And because we're so far out in the sticks, we just do not get any help. We've got to have government help, EEC help, anybody's help.
However, not everybody has a negative view. According to many environmentalists, coastal erosion has to be accepted as a natural process.
The erosion of any coastline is a natural process which shouldn't be looked on as being a bad thing, because what is bad for an individual sitting on the top of Holderness Coast is good for somebody who receives the products of that erosion. And Holderness is one of the major sources of mud in the North Sea, and the coast of, say, Holland and Denmark and Germany depend upon good mudflats in front of them.
The North Sea acts as a natural basin for currents. They travel south down the coast of England, eventually heading north along the coast of the European mainland.
Typical scenes in Holland underline the desolation left in the wake of the disastrous floods there.
In Holland, controlling the sea has been a preoccupation for centuries. For the Dutch, coastal erosion is a national problem. Roland Hillen and his colleague are government officials working full-time on the problems of erosion.
And then way up north, in the one area, we have two very large schemes. So in 1990, the history of the Netherlands is very much associated with the sea. More than half of our country is below sea level, and more than 60% of the population is living below sea level. In 1990, the government and parliament decided on a new coastal defence policy. It was decided that no further loss of dune and beach to the sea would be allowed. So we have decided to protect all of it, from the extreme south to the far north.
The Dutch government spends £25 million a year on sea defences, more than double the British, which has a much larger coastline. There are some who say even the Dutch approach isn't sufficient. Peter Crampton, Humberside's Euro MP, says coastal erosion is not only a national but a continental problem worthy of EC support.
Our government is a bit stingy compared with governments like the Dutch government. And I know in Holland the country is sort of made up by reclaiming land from the sea and protecting that land. But they certainly accept their responsibility, and they are willing to spend enormous amounts of money on coastal protection. There's no problem really about providing coastal protection. Once you decide to do it, it's a question of resources.
This week, Sue Earle took her battle for compensation to the Agriculture Minister, Earl Howe, at Whitehall.
We had a very good meeting. We discussed fully the implications of doing coastal protection on the Holderness coast. We'll have to look at every aspect of it, environmental, and try and put hard points where feasible. It now boils down to the Council preparing a report to give to the Earl Howe to consider.
There's only one thing certain about Sue Earle's fight, that the sea won't stand still for her or for anyone else. The government says we can't preserve every inch of a constantly changing coastline. It will be impractical and prohibitively expensive.
I personally would hate to move from here. I've lived in cities, I've lived in the country when I was a child. There's nothing better than the countryside. And farming is a wonderful way of life, and I would miss it terribly. It's very heartbreaking to see it. You wake up in the morning and you go out and you think, am I going to have a road to get out from? Are we going to have electricity in the morning? It's very nerve-wracking. It is England, not just somebody's little piece of land on the cliff top, or somebody's home. What are we going to have left when this country washes into the sea?
Scarborough Council following the collapse of the Holbeck Hall Hotel into the sea. The east wing of the Victorian Hotel fell into the sea last month. Other parts of the building are still crumbling.
Thousands of pounds of damage was caused, the landslide leaving a massive crater in the side of the cliff. Local people fear their homes could be next. Scarborough Council say they're monitoring the situation closely. And joining me now from our London studio is the Agriculture Minister, Earl Howe. Minister, is this an exceptional payment?
Yes. What we've got to do, first of all, is to ensure as far as we can that no more of the cliff slips into the sea, and that is why the consultants appointed by Scarborough Borough Council have recommended a line of rock armour to protect the material that has slipped into the sea, and works to stabilise that earth and other material so that the sea can't encroach any further.
Are we to assume that there will be further money made available for further work should that initial £2 million not prove to be enough?
I think that once we've done the emergency work, we will have to take stock and see what other work needs to be done. But clearly, our priority at the Ministry is to ensure that life and limb are not put at risk, and we will consider very sympathetically any proposals which are designed to protect the residents of Scarborough.
Would this also apply, do you think, to people who fear their homes also going to fall into the sea further down the coast? As you know, we do have terrific erosion problems on the east coast generally.
Yes, well, there again, I do know that Scarborough, that the local council, Holderness Borough Council, in fact, are looking at the situation. We will assess that once we receive proposals from them.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.